And we are live. What's up, Ramon? How you doing, man? Good
Hey
morning.
man, I'm really good, Saurabh. A bit tired, but all good otherwise. How you?
I'm very good, man. Happy to see your face. First, tell me what's back there, right behind you, that huge prop or a missile. What is it?
It's not. I must stress to our viewers and stress to the world at large. It's a prop. It's made of wood. I think it was part of a movie sort of like thingy. It belonged to the. But yeah, it's a prop.
How did you get it?
Like, it belonged to the landlord of this flat, and when we moved in, he didn't know what to do with it, and he said, "You wouldn't want it, would you?" And I thought, yeah, who wouldn't want a rocket in that studio? So I thought I'll take the rocket. Hence rocket. Thank you for asking about the rocket.
Oh, it's an interesting prop. That's why I asked. So, Ramon, I uh, I know you work a lot with a lot of different producers in Bollywood, and otherwise you are freelancing, working with a lot of other musicians, making their music, programming for them. So, particularly the movie Jagga Jasoos was the last big thing that you did. And I wanted to ask you about your process as to how were you exactly participating? What was your role in the movie exactly as a music producer?
Oh, that's a really good question. I didn't. There's no way I thought you were going to ask anything like that. Cool question. Okay, so that was with Pritam Chakraborty, amazing composer, amazing guy to work with, a very big guy in the industry. So Jagger Justice was a very big project, a huge, definitely the biggest movie project I've worked on. And I think the majority of the people working on the team, I think even Pritam also at the time, was a huge project. Because of the nature of the film, it being a musical. So unlike in a lot of Bollywood movies, the score gets made after the movie because the musical background score is added after the movie is made and all the dialogue is there. But in this one, the dialogue was all sung. So the score, the background music had to be written before a lot of things. But it was really a tricky thing. My involvement is I got called in about 2 years before the movie came out.
Hmm.
Peter uh, Corbin, and I get given projects to work on. So I get okay, this is a thing about. He tells me what is required and what he's after and everything, what sort of sound. He'll compose melodies. He'll sing like la la. He'll sing melodies to me. We'll record them. So basically, for me to work, it's an interesting thing for me to work as a producer.
So how
Uh,
detailed is the brief? The melody is just it can be anything 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and you have to build a 10-minute track around it.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. For a melody to use for a brief, there are only two things that it needs to have. It needs to be in tune and it needs to be on
So
time,
what
in
happens
time.
exactly when he sends you a melody? How does it reach you? What is it exactly?
Uh, Sometimes I'll go there and or maybe I'll get it'll be vocals, it'll be him singing along with guitar and a metronome.
Right.
The metronome, as I said, to keep the singing in time, so we know what tempo the session is, and the guitar to keep the singing in tune. The chords that he's playing, we can change those chords later, but it does make sure that his melody is perfectly in tune. Then I put that into the session, and I know that then he'll give me a lot of verbal input. In that the melody I sung, I wanted on violin, and I wanted in a jazzy style, and I want this, and can you do that, and let's try this, and then we discuss how the tune is going to evolve,
Right.
and then I build around that. Yeah.
So not knowing the language at all, has it been a hurdle ever for you that you didn't understand what's in the words? Is the brief enough always for you that you're given a brief of the vibe of the song and then you just build around that?
Yeah. Occasionally I do get visuals with subtitles, with English subtitles to help me. But one thing that I really love about working with film, about scoring backgrounds and writing music for film, is that it's very visually led. So I'm given a verbal brief, but I can also see what's going on a lot of the time. Like you can feel the emotion of the actors and feel what the scene, how the scene is supposed to flow.
Hmm.
Um, so unless the dialogue itself is dictating the mood, then I need to know what the dialogue is. Otherwise, I can normally manage. If it's a fight scene, obviously the dialogue isn't that important. But for example, like I might see the grandmother saying something, and I might think she's insulting somebody because somebody else goes, and maybe when it's translated, somebody will tell me, no, she's actually making a joke and they're being sarcastic, and I've completely misunderstood the scene. So
Right.
in that respect, yeah, it can be a problem. Not speaking Hindi. I won't say very well because I can literally pick out very, very few words and very rarely, sometimes makes sense, but not often.
So a lot of Jagga Jasoos music is extremely orchestrated. It's all a cappella and a bunch of things going on. It's beautifully done, by the way. And I just watched some of the movie this morning before talking to you, so that I don't talk shit on this podcast, because I must know uh, the things that you have done, so on and so forth. So in terms of MIDI orchestration, which is a huge subject in itself, how did you develop your skills to start orchestrating so well on MIDI over MIDI? Because I'm sure when you started, there weren't so many resources available like now. How did you develop so well? Like when you're orchestrating, you're writing so many parts for strings, horns, and everything.
First of all, just to get very quickly back to Jagga Jasoos, I was part of a large team. There was some other, Jim Satya was one. There was some great India's top composers and producers working on different sections. So Preetam would give me a section to work on, give other people sections to work on. Sometimes we'd swap and add to each other's sections. So it was great being a part of a large team. Now I'm going to answer your question. Sorry.
Yeah, got it.
It's you're right. Jagga Jasoos is a very orchestral meaning there's a full 60-piece orchestra playing a lot of the time. But it starts with, as you say, me working, or another composer or producer working in the MIDI domain, working on our computers using VSTs, virtual instruments, to actually, as we compose. But for me to start with, a lot of the time when I compose, whether it's orchestral or regardless of the piece I'm working on, I'll often start with just the piano. Even if the song isn't the finished song, even if I know it's not going to have any piano in it, I'll still start with piano when I'm composing, because it's my instrument. It's what I play. It's what I look at the keys and I'm really comfortable, and everything's clear to me visually and also in my head. Then when I've got melodies or something that I like, harmonies that I like, then I'll start playing them all over again, but on the instruments that we're going to use. So in the case of a film like Jagga Jasoos, we're looking at violins 1, violins 2, violas, cellos 1, cellos 2, basses, and so on. That's just the strings. And then you've got all the woodwinds and the horns in the orchestra also.
Right.
So I started orchestrating, to be honest, not that long ago. About 15 years ago is when I started that kind of work. Up until then, I've been composing all sorts of other music, electronic music and other things. But as you say, recording wasn't so easy back then. My first home studio didn't have audio. My first home studio was an Atari 1040 ST, which running Cubase off a floppy disk. I think it would have been made, before they start making them, before a lot of today's current producers are even born. But I remember buying that a long time ago, because to record on audio, a lot of producers at the time were using samplers, the older Kai samplers, but triggered via MIDI, and that would be the audio a lot of the time. So that's how I started. That MIDI, that old really Atari 1040 ST running Cubase, plugged into. I had an Akai, a synth, an Elysis QS8. So it's a multi-timbral synthesizer. This was the big 88-note, fully weighted one. I'd plug the Atari into that via MIDI. The Atari machine itself was one of the only machines at the time, like the Amstrad and the BBC Micro, but the Atari had MIDI ports built into the machine as standard. It was as if when they designed it, they knew musicians are going to be using this, so they put MIDI ports into it.
And it's forever, from that time till now, we still have the same ports. I think that's the only port which hasn't changed.
Oh my God! Musical instrument digital interface, I think if we Google it, it would have started in the late 70s. When Korg, the Korean organ company, when Korg, Roland, Yamaha, all the major synthesizer manufacturers, Roland, which is got together at the time and thought that they would come up with a system for their instruments to communicate, and musical instrument digital interface, MIDI, was born. And the thing is, it was such a perfectly made system. It's hardly changed at all. I'll be using MIDI later on today when I start working. And you probably will be too. It's an amazing.
It's talking about ports, no? Like that port hasn't changed. It's the same. It's just the
Oh,
same.
the five
The
pin
five
DIN
pin,
plug is the
it's
same.
still
Yeah.
there, and we have the USB-Cs, we have the
Right.
Lightning, we have the micro, we have the mini USB, and this and that. But MIDI stays the same. I find
You
really.
know
What are you saying?
the irony the irony of that 5 pin DIN MIDI
Uh
socket
huh.
is that only pins 1, 3, and 5 are used.
Oh.
The two middle pins are not even used at all. I think they used that 5 pin DIN, 5 pin DIN format because it was used for a lot as an audio
Hmm.
format, as an audio bus at the time. Um,
That's
anyway.
interesting. So, a lot of times there are these words being used. One is a music producer, one is a programmer, one is a composer. What's the primary difference when you call yourself a programmer for Pritham? What does it exactly mean as compared to a producer?
Well, these are really good questions. Great questions, actually, because there is confusion over this.
Mm.
Now, I think let's start with composer. Let's start with composer, first of all. Composer is really simple. It's somebody who makes up a tune. It's that simple. When Preetam goes, I want you to do, and that's composing. When I sit down at my piano and I think and I know I've got to make up a melody that needs to conjure this emotion, it needs to be that, that's composing.
Mm.
And I think in the old days, let's come to music production now. In the old days, a band would want to record an album. Let's go back to the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s. A band would want to record an album.
Mm-hmm.
They go to the studio, and it's not good enough. The band can't just plug their instruments in and the sound engineer will hit record and then they'll start recording their songs. They didn't work like that. There's always another person in the studio, and he's the musical, non-band member, but the musical big picture guy, if you like, the music producer. He's the one who goes, guys, great song. So I've had an idea. Why don't we double take the guitars and put that there? And you play keyboards. Why don't you put an organ line under? So the producer actually takes and then the music producer, they would discuss and he would add bits to it. After the song was recorded, the band can actually often go away and the music producer and the sound engineer will sit together with all the recordings that they've made and they'll put it together into a cohesive, proper song, something that's worth playing on the radio. So that was the old music producer definition. And then I think what happened after that is as computers became used much more and more, a producer, his or her, I keep saying his just because then would decide on the with the band and the engineer would decide on the big musical sound picture and may decide that as years on by, he wants some programming, he wants some synthesizer parts that need to be programmed into a machine because these parts are not going to be played manually. They're going to be recorded into a sequencer, we used to call them back then, or a computer like an Atari 1040 ST. And that requires a separate skill. Not all music producers at the time were comfortable with computers. It was a specialist skill. You'd need like a bit of a musical geek nerd person to come and sit down, and you could tell him what you want. And then he'll sit at his computer and he'll enter notes. And the guy has to be a musician also. He has to at least know some basic keyboards. And this programmer would come in and program the non-live musical parts. So that would be a musical
So
program.
these are basically synth sounds and all that, but
Yeah,
very specific ones that are created and put into place because of the hardship of the technology that time.
Well, no, because I think as the 80s evolved, new technology happened. So let's just say ABBA, when they first went into the studio, they'd plug in their keyboards and guitars, they'd record, the music producer would put it all together. As the years evolved, computers and synthesizers started coming together, and musicians and composers and the whole music industry realized that we can do a new thing that we've never done before. And that is compose, or you can put one finger down on a key and you'll get all sorts of notes happening. And it sounds easy, and when you put your finger, but to actually make that work, and if you want to program every single one of those notes, I keep using the word program, you'll see. If you want to program every single, what happens? Who put those notes in when you hit the thing? And what if you want to, in MIDI, record other things? It gets quite complicating. And for a music producer who doesn't have those skills, they definitely employ a programmer. And his or her job would be to sit in the studio, and they would, with their computer and with their synthesizers, and very often also special synthesizer sounds would need to be created. And again, the producer may not know about synthesizers. He or she is like a great musician, great big music, big picture person. But when it comes down to fiddling with a a Moog modular synthesizer, but they don't know. They just want to, they want that to happen. So they'll get a guy or a girl who comes in and understands that synthesizer. They'll twiddle all the knobs, make it happen. Somebody who programs it, because computers and synthesizers, they're all just computers, so they require programming.
So the composer or the producer is telling the programmer that this is the sound I want. Please program and create this.
Yeah.
Or it might be nowadays in a bank. It'll be available in some bank somewhere in the MIDI libraries or VSTs. And in that time, we had to create it.
Absolutely. And then what would happen after that is that composers and music producers began to use computers very, very naturally in their day-to-day lives. Because if I'm a composer and I've written my composition on a piano and I write out the music, or I give it to my bandmates for them to play, wouldn't it be great if I could actually hear how that piece of music sounds before giving it to the bass player, to the guitarist, to the drummer? So me as a composer, I'm now able to record it with play the bass guitar on my keyboard, play the guitars on my keyboard, record the whole thing on my computer without going near another musician. So now, me as a composer, I've also become a programmer, because now I'm doing what's traditionally the realm of a programmer. So now I'm a composer who's become a programmer, and now traditionally you go to a music producer to put it all together, but now I've got all this in my computer. I can also become a bit of a music producer myself. Because once I've programmed everything in my computer, I can work on making it sound cool. I can do that thing there. I can drag a thing there. The jobs that a producer would normally do in the studio.
So what I'm understanding is that now the lines have blurred completely. It used to be a very defined separate skill, but now it's almost like everybody knows everything and everybody does everything or has to do everything in order to be in the industry well-grounded.
Absolutely. It's like you don't get people who make thatch roofs anymore, because we don't have things evolve. So as the technology evolves, the job titles blur or become redefined, not blurred, or they become redefined.
So coming to learning a bunch of things, I know that you play trombone, you play piano, you sing, you do a gazillion other things. Now, my question to you is that, were you consciously studying all these things in order to, make some use of all this together in some future day? Or was it just life that threw all this at you, and one by one it happened, you learned everything, you practiced everything, and then after 20, 30 years, you realized, oh shit, I can do all this together?
I'm a ridiculously indisciplined, immature person. I am not the sort of person that will sit down and send myself to college and learn something, because I'm a lazy bastard. But what happened to me when I was younger, I'm not going to go into the whole history of how, unless you want me to at some time, but I got into music when I was 11, and I got did stop music. At the time, it was the trombone. I didn't go home and practice because I wanted to learn and get better, because I wanted to impress. I went home and practiced because what else was I going to do? I loved practicing so much. It wasn't a chore. It's never been a chore for me, music. I've never, very rarely consciously make myself do it. So with regards to teaching myself to do this so I could do it, no, like it's just random. I just couldn't stop doing it, and even today I can't stop doing music because I'm hooked on it. I'm really addicted to it.
So it's just then it's something that you have, life has given to you, of course. That's what I'm understanding. And there was this curiosity that all the time you were just involved into it. And then that time there was nothing to binge on as well, right? You would just go home and this is what you did. This is the entertainment. The practice is the entertainment. That's very interesting. So, but still you are a person who gets shit done. You have written a whole Fanculos album, which we play together. And it's not that the album is revolving around a chord or two. It's serious arrangements. Everything is serious in it. It sounds light, of course. But what is your approach when you're trying to finish something? How much are you after that? What's going on inside your head that you're calling yourself lazy, but still you're getting shit done?
I That's a really good question, and this should be the subject of an entire other podcast, because what we're addressing here is that evil mother, and that is procrastination. Because yes, because I said I am immature and lazy. I am all that, but I've matured a little bit over the years. Yeah, I had a major problem because being indisciplined, undisciplined, indisciplined, whatever, being not that focused as a younger person, I would start a project, I would start a bit of music, I'd start composing or something, I'd love it, but I wouldn't finish it because, oh, I want to do this now, and I'd move on to another bit. So what would happen, I'd have lots of unfinished bits of music, and when I started writing songs, actual complete songs, the lyrics and vocals, 20 years ago, I sort of started writing full songs, it would take me 2 or 3 months to finish one half-produced song because I could not decide how. And then a miraculous thing happened about 15 years ago. I won't get into the full history, but the history was I found myself in the UK with a week on my hands, a week of free time, and a friend of mine I was talking to me about music for computer games. So I thought, I actually made myself sit down and I made myself very disciplined, and I set myself an exercise, and I thought within that week you've got to compose at least 5 songs, 5 tunes. Each one has to be done in one day, and each one has to be finished before I go to bed. I can start in the morning, have a coffee, then I've got to go to bed that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night, and have it finished, or at least finished up to a standard where I can play it to somebody and say, hey, listen to this new song I've made, something. That was an invaluable lesson because I realized that I can actually work pretty quick when I want to. And then coming to Bombay, then the years happened. I got really good at programming. I set myself lots more tests to finish things quickly. Then when I came to Bombay 10 years ago, I realized that in the business here, speed is everything.
Right.
Because they'll call you and they'll say, we want this project done. Can you compose? Can you arrange, produce this, that? And they'll be like, yeah, sure. When do you want it by? The answer was always, well, yesterday. That's always the answer. Yesterday, of course. So speed is everything, which I found has been a really, really good thing that I think I personally have. I'm bloody quick at my work.
So is the industry...
but it's not just the speed.
Yeah, sorry.
It's also the... Now, working in the professional domain, I can't do unfinished pieces of music and flit onto something else. I've got to finish the project, and I've got to finish it. If I say Tuesday night, I've got to give it to them either before or on Tuesday night.
So when you push yourself into the industry like this, when you got working professionally, do you give this credit to the industry that they gave you timelines which improved your speed? Or do you think that just working over and over again, you became better and then you were ready for the industry?
It's me. I was already pretty damn fast when I started being given timelines. It's me. I think like I said, I really am addicted to it. I sort of zone in. I completely zone out rather when I'm sitting in front of the computer, when I'm composing, playing, arranging, producing, doing anything. And I like to finish things quickly. I can be very impatient. And if I've got I think what it is, my brain moves like stupidly fast when it comes to music, and when I'm programming, working on the computer, I've got what I want to do in my head, and I want to get it happening on the computer before I forget, before I lose that seed in my head. So I've gotten very, get it down, play it quick, record that. What's it going to be on? Bass, quick, pick one, there, drums. How does it go? Got it. That is that what I wanted? I think so. And by the time I've done that, I want to do something else. Let's put horns on it. What happens if we put that? I think it's a really good question. It's been very therapeutic for me, this question. I think it's to do with the way that I personally think about things, and I want to keep up with what's in my head, and I've had to learn to work very quickly to do that.
Yeah, so I mean, I have known you for good 4 years now, and I've seen that you're a guy who finishes his day by evening because you like to chill, you like to relax, you like to spend time with friends, family, so on and so forth. Do you think this whole concept of finishing your day at a certain time gives you that whole push that I have to get this done by 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock because I want to relax in the evening? Does it work in your favor? Having a deadline, like a daily deadline.
It's a bit of both. Let's just say you called me yesterday and you gave me a project to work on today. We've discussed everything. My first question is, sorry, when do you want this by? And you'll say, bro, ideally, if you can get it to me by 8 o'clock tomorrow night, if you can give me a first draft by 8 o'clock tonight, So what I do, I'll sit down and I'll already know what I need to do before I start work, what's required, and I've got a good idea. I'm pretty experienced roughly how long I can do it. So I'll give myself a very realistic deadline. So I'll tell myself if I start at 11, I should definitely have something ready by 6 o'clock. So when I mean ready by 6 o'clock, something for me to, I think is ready to send, but I want another hour to polish it off before I send it to you. So when I sit down, I've got my clock right here on my desk, and I'm always looking at my clock. And when I start the project, I tell myself, right, you need to have had drums and bass down by 2 o'clock. I set myself mini little targets throughout the day. And then I finish drums and bass by 2 o'clock, and then I'm like, what's the time now? I can pop out I can have a quick bite to eat, or maybe I won't. And then I've got to finish all the strings by 5 o'clock, and then I can give it a quick mix and master before I send it to Saurabh. I'm really specific with my mini deadlines I give myself throughout the day. Is how I work on a project. But it has to be realistic. It must be realistic.
So there's one problem that creative people face is that they know they need a timeline to be given to themselves about any project that they start. But then the realistic aspect is the one which is hard to gauge. How can one do that according to you? Is this something you developed with experience, that how much time actually something takes?
We all try. I think we all try. I mean, in any work, in any sort of freelance work, you need to sort of, the boss is going to ask you, well, how long is it going to take you to do that? You need to, in any business, but just rephrase the question.
I'm just trying to understand from you, like if you're very clear about the timeline, that this is how long you're going to take about something, to do something, how did you reach those conclusions? Because the problem that creatives are facing is they give themselves a timeline, but it's not realistic. That's the issue. So how did you develop this?
I mean, the scenario I just described, you give me a session, is an ideal scenario.
Right.
That's with everything working in my favor. That's with us having a really good brief and me having a very good understanding of what's required. But not all clients. So sometimes I'm not quite sure I've got an idea, but I'm kind of far from what I think I should have finished. So it's more difficult for me to tell myself, right, by 8 o'clock you should be finished. But I think it's an experience thing, and also it's an experience thing. Again, even then I set myself many deadlines. I must have composed the first 8 bars, or I must have composed the A section by 2 o'clock. But it's difficult, and I do get it wrong. And what happens if I've gotten it wrong and I've come to 8 o'clock and I haven't finished? First of all, I would have been working like a really hard all day, because I would have known from hours ago that I don't think I'm going to make 8 o'clock. Because I'm far off I set myself mini deadlines. I don't know if I'm not meeting my mini deadlines, and I'm thinking, this is not going to happen by 8. So what I do, I try to speed myself up more. If I'm getting creatively bogged down, which happens to all creators, I'm just not able to compose. What I'm composing is not making me smile. It's not working. So I'll take a break, literally, but a very short break, 10 minutes, go outside, go on the balcony, look at the view for a minute, have a smoke, chill, do something. And then come back, and there are many ways around it. And come 8 o'clock, if I still haven't done it, then I keep working really, really hard. And worst comes to worst, I'll have to call you at 10 o'clock. I'll call you at 8 o'clock and say, bro, I'm stuck. The thing is, by then, I should know why I'm stuck. By then, I should know I need more input or something's wrong. Because like I said, it is experience. I'm quite good. And if I'm thinking after all these hours I put in, and if I'm still so far off, I'm missing a piece. What am I missing? Something's wrong with today's session. Maybe I need more feedback from you, or what?
That's interesting. So you're not a lazy guy then. I mean, the definition of lazy is really, really weird, I think, because I think laziness occurs or happens when people are put into situations they are not interested in. That's when you don't feel like doing shit. But in your case, the stuff that you really want to do, you're at it, and it's nice to get different perspectives as to, because some people are disciplined people. I'm like, repeat the same thing again and again every day and make shit happen like that. You feel like doing something, you don't feel like doing something, it doesn't matter. I'm going to sit and I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. And that's how I keep rolling. So your writing process for the Fanculos in particular, now you're writing lyrics in that, you're writing everything, literally. You write the drum parts, bass parts, and we just humanize those parts. You are programming
I,
everything, you're doing everything. What is your process for writing a song for a band like the Fanculos?
First of all, you guys don't just humanize the parts. I think you guys offer a little bit more than just humanizing the parts. I'll come. So first of all, how do I compose them? What goes
Yeah, the
into why, how,
Fanculos
and
song, if you wrote those songs a while back,
yeah.
what was your exact process to write the Fanculos? Melodies, bass lines, everything.
Yeah, a lot of the songs were different. Sometimes I've got an idea, a concept that I want to write about, and I tell myself I keep a notes on my phone, and every time I get a hear or I come up with a weird, freaky idea, lyrical idea, I write it down. I write it down. I write it down, and sometimes I'll sit down, let's compose something. I'll look at these things, and I've got interesting things to look at that spark of lyrical ideas. Sometimes it's that. But for the Fanculo specifically, as we started writing, as there were about 4 or 5 songs written already, I was then aware of gaps within our repertoire. I thought, oh, we need one that's kind of like a fast and chat and chat and chat and chat in a minor key, that's horn fronted. And I've got an idea of the kind. Very often, I have an idea of the kind of song I want to write, and I point to myself in that. I give myself a brief for the Fanculos, as I do for many things that I do. Sometimes I've got a new plugin and I'm messing around with this new bass plugin and I'm thinking, oh, this is so cool, and I'm just really fucking around and just having fun on my computer with music, and I play something and I think, this happens with bass lines a lot, as you very well know, Saurabh. I love, if I wasn't the question is like, if you didn't play keyboards, trombone, and sing, what other instrument would you play? Bass guitar. Bass guitar. No, ever since I was a teenager, ever since I was in my first band, I've always thought, like, if I didn't play keyboards or trombone, bass.
Yeah, I just want to tell people that if you want to look good as a bass player, get in touch with Ramon, play his bass lines, and you're going to look good as a bass player, because the best bass lines are written by Ramon. Yes, they're hard to play because they're written on the synth, but you're going to look really good.
So a lot of time I literally am. A lot of the Fanculo songs originated from bass lines. I've got it, and I think, well, that's nice, and I lay down a quick drum thing, and then I mess with the bass lines. And I think that's really nice if it's making me move about in my chair, and if it's making me smile. It's a bit like MasterChef, you know, the dish comes. And it's like, oh, it's putting a smile on my face. It's back for me. And if as I'm composing or messing around, then I'm thinking, oh, this is great. Oh, yes. Let's put a bit of this. Let's put a bit of that. And I can't. And by then, sometimes I will come up with a groove with like an A section with just which will and horns sometimes, and sometimes if I'm going to put that in, and then I'll come to the next question, which is, what's the melody? What's the tune? What am I going to sing on this really funky ska groove that I've written? What's going to happen over the top? Because people need a thing. So then we need to write some top lines, we call like vocal parts. So I do have a process. When it comes to melodies, I'm very good at coming up with melodies. I play what I've done, the groove, over and over again, and I listen to it hundreds and hundreds of times. Sometimes I just listen to it and have a drink, and I listen to it again on the headphones, and melodies pop into my head. Here's a nice analogy. As a music producer, stroke composer, programmer, the God is what we do. In other words, like a listener listens to a piece of music and it's very passive. The music's happening to them. If they don't like it, compose it. If I don't like that bass line, I can change it. If I want a sax line in there, put one in. I can make it anything I want. And I think I'm digressing.
No, get it. Keep going.
Yeah, I start, and then the melodies will start popping into my head, and I'll think maybe it's too busy. Let's have I'll have an idea of the kind of melody I want to write to. Sometimes, say the chorus has gone suddenly very busy, I might think, don't do a busy vocal, do a busy vocal for the verse. Then in the chorus, let's have a bit of contrast. And this is giving myself a brief. Write like a sustained kind of a vocal line, fewer words, make it hooky as fuck. So I give myself briefs, and
right.
and And so as I'm listening to the groove I've written, I dissolve the brief that I've given myself, and melodies start to pop out. Things start to happen.
Right.
And then comes the bit I hate most of all. I really hate this job. That's writing the lyrics. I've never enjoyed writing lyrics. But I'm aware, especially in the early days, that like, I'm going to have to write these lyrics. Okay, let's do it. Because I can't go la, 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 do, do, do. I'm going to have to write some shit. So often what happens when I've got a melody, I can't la, 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 goo, when the melody is in my head. Random words often pop out. It only happens when the track is playing. When the music is playing, I throw myself in the zone. I imagine the band is there and I'm on. And then, what are you singing? What's happening?
Wow.
What's next in the scene? What's next in the scene? And then I then words and melodies sometimes pop out. It's weird as fuck. But it's a very mental meditation thing. You listen to the thing, then trick myself into thinking the band's there. This is you're singing. What are you singing? What are the words? What's coming out? What's it about? I ask myself so many questions. And I want answers and I expect answers, and they always come. So lyrical ideas pop out. And if I think like, better later than never, oh, it's nice. It's like a song about, and then I know what the song's about. It's about procrastinating and about at least doing something. And then I feel myself with that, more lyrics, and then words flow. Some of them are rubbish and I cross them out. Some of them are quite good and even rhyme a little bit. Like, then I painfully, slowly finish the first verse and move on to verse 2.
Yeah, then the change just goes on after that, I believe. Ramon, just stay on. Just hold on a second. There's something up with the internet. Just be online.
Okay.
I'm just be online. I'm pausing this for a second. Huh? Just a sec.
Pause.
All right. Ramon, you there? Hello.
Yep, I'm here.
We're back. Sorry guys, sorry about that. Something up with the internet. Now everything's fine, up and running and green. Yeah, so you were saying that you finish a verse and then after that the chain is just continuing. The ideas are popping out like this.
Yeah.
And then you're just joining one thing with the other, and then end of the day, before you know, it's a song that you have recorded. You keep going.
The next task really is for me to not. I'm never too hard on myself when I'm composing. I don't expect myself to have a complete, finished, perfect song at the end of the writing session. But I would like a first draft from myself, which is rough lyrics, rough melody. And then I make a very quick production of that song. And then I listen to it over and over and over again. And then I'll tweak it. And then if I like what I've done, I'll have written a bass line specifically for you, because I know Saurabh's going to play this, and let's make it tricky, because he could do it. And let's put some really cool tenor sax and alto sax parts for Reese and Ryan, because they're good and it's going to sound amazing. And when I write, I'm very, very aware of who's going to be playing the parts and how it's going to sound. But I fake the whole thing on my computer first.
Yeah, that's what we get from you. This interesting thing about
I set it up.
Sorry.
No, and then as you say, then when I like what I've done, then I send the track out to you guys and say, "What do you think? Should we do this?"
And we are all going crazy about it. Yes, of course, you're the best, and blah blah blah. We love you.
I've got a new one, by the way. I've got a really cool new one.
Please send it across soon.
So
what I find interesting about these creative processes is that, sometimes they come at the randomest of times. Like you're walking around, you're taking baths, you're just not doing anything, and then that's when our phones are really helpful, actually, just to open the recorder, put an idea in. And even Cory Wong, I was watching one of his lives recently, and he's the guitar player for Wolfpack. And he said that I wanted to write music during this lockdown, and I just opened my phone and I heard these ideas and I started putting them together. So same thing.
On mind.
So when the time comes to think about stuff that you want to execute or you want to write, it is pretty hard to just sit in front of the computer and think, today I'm going to write a song. And I have no ideas, I don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But just having this whole bank of things in your phone already can be lyrical ideas. Like my phone is full of the School of Bass video ideas, for example. So I can't sit and imagine them, but when I'm just taking a run or I'm just doing whatever, suddenly I'll get this idea and I have to stop myself, take my phone out, just write the idea quickly down, so that when I sit down to write the next School of Bass video or make the next School of Bass video, it's much easier to just open the phone and see, hey, I've got hundreds of these video ideas that I can execute. Similarly, I've written some business ideas which I have nothing to do with. I'm not even in those fields, but I just imagine that, hey, this business would be really cool. If one day I meet somebody who can execute this business, it'll be awesome to just open my phone, and I have got like 30, 40 business ideas which I have nothing to do with. They can be something to do with metals and alloys and whatnot, and I'm never going to step into that territory as far as I know myself. But still, it's like it's in the air. When you're singing in your room, you're sitting there just repeating the song, you're kind of opening doors in your mind, in your creative spaces, that muses come, just tell me what the lyric is, what the word is. But I believe also the hard work that you put into it, when you're repeating the stuff so much again and again and again, and then it comes as a reward to you. If you don't put that work in, I don't know, like sometimes we feel you just sitting and relaxing and having a drink, and some magic is going to happen without putting in the work. So what I'm hearing from you is you put in a lot of work, and then when you get into that relaxed state, then something happens which you don't know where it came from.
I mean, people a lot of the time say, and then an idea randomly popped into my head. I don't think there's nothing random about it. I don't think. I think it's quite simple. Our brains are the most wonderful, complex things. And if I've trained mine to be the brain of a musician, a doctor has trained his or her brain to be the brain of a doctor. So they'll ask themselves a doctor question, and their brain will get to work. So I think our brains get to work in the background. So I'll hear a musical thing, and I'll be working on a project, and I'll tell my brain, oh, I'd really like to write a song that's like this or like that. And then I forget about it. And then what happens, I know that my brain is working on, all of us, our brains are working on shitloads of stuff in the background. And it's a bit like an old-fashioned computer. My brain will go, oh, do you remember that one he gave us last week about writing the Fanculos song with the thing goes, cut. We've got an idea. Cha-ching. And then the bottom of the brain puts forward this idea. It doesn't give a fuck if it's 3 a.m. or if you're in the toilet. It doesn't care what you're doing. It just knows we got one. So that's when you have to record it quickly, write it down, because the point I'm trying to make is I don't think they're random things. We train our brains to work in a certain direction. We feed questions into our brain, and our brain does work on those questions and comes up with answers.
I was listening to this neuroscientist talk, Andrew Huberman, and he was mentioning how your brain is neuroplastic. There is neuroplasticity in your brain, so you can basically mold it into whatever you want to do. But he was saying a very cool thing. He said that till 25, you can do whatever you want to do, or rather your brains can be morphed in a way that society around you can decide. What I mean to say is that if you're surrounded by certain people who give you certain suggestions, they can teach your brain to be a certain way. But after 25, when your brain is completely formed, then they can't really have, neuroplastic effects on your brain. At least that's how I would phrase it. But then the conversation goes on, and he's asked that what happens after 25, because people change after 25 as well. How does that occur? He said that after you're 25 years old, the only way to make changes in your head, or rather what you are saying is to prepare your brain to be a brain of a musician, The way to do that is self-suggestion. That's the only way you can do it. You have to tell yourself to do stuff, and you have to have a feeling of urgency and focus as an adult. Now, when I'm referring to an adult, I'm not talking about the government age. I'm talking about the scientific age of a brain. When 25, your brain is fully formed. Can you change it after that to be a composer, to be another creative or a mathematician? The only way he said that is you got to be focused, and the only thing that works after 25 years of age is self-suggestion and a feeling of urgency. And that apparently you can also generate by, or they get generated by social pressures sometimes, that you feel this feeling of urgency that you got to do something, you got to achieve something, so on and so forth.
Achieve. Yeah.
And it starts coming from inside, this whole thing that, okay, I'm going to, whatever, be the next best musician, best sound engineer, whatever one wants to be. So it's very interesting to know, and when you're saying you have made your brain into a brain of a musician, and that's how your brain functions. It's that lens that's constantly there, and it's constantly, the ideas are always moving into that direction. I think that practice that you put in, the hard work that you're putting in, has programmed your head to make things happen faster. And I think you've done it for years altogether. We kind of give up halfway because we haven't repeated it enough number of times, I think. And the more we repeat this stuff, that's what I do for myself also. This shit I just don't want to do. Like, every morning I practice, but sometimes I just don't want to practice. But then, to me, my philosophy is, when it's time to practice, it's time to practice. Nobody cares how you're feeling. I don't care how I'm feeling. Feeling tired? Yes, like right now I'm sitting doing this podcast. I'm very tired right now because the amount of work I've been doing and all that. So I'm a little sick. But it's time for the podcast. It doesn't matter how I'm feeling. I'm going to do it. Get to work. That's about it. Very interesting to know. What are the other projects, Ramon, your other Bollywood artists that you often work with apart from Preetham?
Not that many. It's been a while since I've worked with Bollywood artists, Indian film industry artists. I think the last one was Preetham, actually. Yeah, I do a variety of things. Sometimes if I get a film project, that's nice to work on. I've done a couple of projects myself for other people, some short films and a couple of ads and stuff. Personal projects, the Fanculos. I'm always working on the Fanculos. I've got a constant question in my head, like, what's the next Fanculos song? What should we do? What should we do? What's it going to be like? So my brain's like, I've got some boys working on that one right now. They're working on it. And there's other guys working on other problems too. But that's happening now. There's a couple of other things that I'm working on that I will tell you about soon.
Sure thing.
That people will find out.
Do you see the industry work shifting a lot towards over-the-top platforms like Netflix, Amazon, and do you get a lot of work from the other producers and movie makers nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, like you asked about the Bollywood, which other Bollywood producers? What's been happening actually since then is Netflix, Amazon Prime, Netflix. All of those there's a lot of work from there. It's actually being very good for people like me, musician, programmer, composer, producer type people, because it's been generating quite a bit of work. Obviously, this COVID thing has the whole world slowed down, including the business. But it's good. I mean, I watch a lot of TV also. I'm also a massive consumer of Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Hotstar myself. And so there's some really great scores out there. It's not as if like, oh, everybody's doing it now. Is the music getting shit? There'll always be shit music, but there's some really good scores out there. I've heard some lovely piece of music. I'm sitting here watching something, relaxation time, watching something on TV, and I'm thinking, I'm going to have to go back. I missed all of that dialogue because the music that was going on in the background was really good. So I do think that these Amazon, Netflix, I think it's been really helpful.
Which was the last, there's something you did for Voot, right? Some TV show that is coming on Voot?
Yeah.
What is it called?
I don't often know where the shows that I work on. Oh, how about Hasu? That's, we did a 4 episodes last year. That was on Sony Live. I think that was
Yeah,
on.
that was on Sony.
So
That's right.
there's another one I did recently with Salvage Audio. I was part of a team at Salvage Audio,
Hmm.
and we did another score, 100 it's called, and that's on is that on Hotstar or Prime? But it's out there.
That's fine.
That was fun to do. That was fun
Fine.
to do. It's yeah.
So, are you enjoying more creative freedom in these particular projects compared to Bollywood?
Say it's the
It's the
same,
same.
really. Yeah. I mean, for me, all professional work is working to a brief, because professional work, in my view, is doing what I do, what I love, for somebody else, to their brief, but they're going to pay me for it. So all professional work is to a brief. Um, and as far as I'm concerned, when I get a project, when somebody gives me a brief, I am working to their specifications. But at the end of the day, when I finished it, I have to like it. I have to really like it. So regardless of whether I'm working on a Bollywood track, and I'll be honest, I don't really watch many Bollywood films myself. It's not I'm not much of a consumer, although I'm a contributor, or have been a contributor. But I still love what I've done, even though it's in a genre that I'm not a consumer. I've got to like what I've done, and I can appreciate other good musical work that other people have done. But it's not me, the consumer, that's saying that. It's me, the professional, hearing the music and enjoying the quality of the work.
Do
So
Do you know any
yeah.
people who create some work and then they won't share it with anybody because they'll say that it's just some shitty stuff I did for money, and I mean, don't listen to it. Do you know any people who do that?
I'm sure there are, and I don't think it's the sort of thing that if I didn't know anybody, they'd want to talk about it.
Because
Oh, I hate my job. I make shitty music. I'm not going to play it to you.
that's something that people often complained about, that I just did this for money, so don't judge
Other
me.
projects that I'm ashamed of, other projects that I'd rather not have my name on. I think there've been a couple. I'm sure there've been. I'm sure we've all done them.
But then you're saying
You know.
you make sure that you like it. So you like those as well at some level?
Well, yes, absolutely. Yeah, because I maybe not want people to hear, because it's a genre that I maybe not. I don't want to be known for that genre, let's say. But at the same time, I'm working for a client and they're paying me money to do this, so it has to pass my personal seal of approval. In other words, is this music of a very high quality, and is it exactly what the client has asked for? And is he or she really enjoying what I've made for them? I won't enjoy it on a consumer level, but I'll definitely enjoy it on a professional level, that it's a good quality. It's hit the brief. It's a great melody that I think works really well in the genre that they've selected for me. So I will like it, yes, but on a professional level, not as a consumer.
Are you planning to build something else apart from, like right now I know you're doing the Fanculos there, of course. Anything in your vision you have, or you want to be a producer and a composer for the rest of your life?
You mean any non-musical things?
Not
or
non-musical, but in music also. Are
any?
you planning to build?
Well, yeah. Of course, I mean, the thing I love about our job is that we get to. We've been talking about music and production and composing, but like we play live music also. The Fanculos is a live band, and I have done. We both playing the bartender, and so there's live work. I've got to keep gigging. I can't. When I first came to Bombay, I found myself not doing any gigging at all and spending all my time in the studio. Which, don't get me wrong, I love being in the studio. I'm really happy to sit at my computer for 10 hours. For me, it's fun. But the part of the live musician part of me was missing that. So I tried to keep a healthy balance of studio and live music. So within that, God, anything. I'm so open. I'm so always open to ideas that I might get, or ideas that other people may come up with. Yeah, definitely.
That's interesting.
I have no idea what I'm going to do. I've got some ideas, but hopefully it's interesting and exciting what I'll
Sounds good,
do.
man. So Ramon, thank you so much for
Dude,
coming to the School of Bass podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed it. A lot of things I learned while talking to you, and your writing processes and everything else. And I'm going to hang up the call now. Anything you want to add? Anything you want to promote, say?
I think just getting back to the point of what we first started with about music not being a chore. If anybody is a producer or a composer, if I want to say one thing, is like, don't, because we've touched on this a lot, don't let your work be a chore.
Yeah.
It's a creative job, and if our creative brain associates activity with being a chore, it's not going to create properly. And what you do create, even if the client likes it, I'm not going to be able to put my seal of of quality, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Don't let the work be a chore. Find a way to make it fun for yourself, even if it's in a genre that you don't like. Let there be give yourself a challenge, like let's put a smile on my client, like a huge grin on my client's face. Let that, and let the music be ace, even if I don't consume. Enjoy the work. Don't let it be a chore. Make it enjoy.
That's beautiful advice. Thank you, Ramon. It was fun talking to you, man. Take care.
Yes, all right.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming to the podcast.